Hi, welcome to Were the Kids Alright, a podcast where we analyze the books we read as kids. My name is Jacqueline, and I use they, them, or she, her pronouns.
My name is Sophie, and I use she, her pronouns.
We're two college students who read a lot as children and now have thoughts.
First things first, we use the analytical framework of death of the author. Basically, the author doesn't matter until we say they do.
We also will get into spoilers, so that's your warning for that. For this episode, we'll touch on mass murder, sword wounds, stabbing, death, emotional manipulation, betrayal, sexual harassment, implied attempt of sexual assault, blood, horse abuse, horse death, kidnapping, child abuse, death of a parent, classism, nativism, rigid monarchy gender roles, and magical coercion. Woo!
So just as a warning, this is a pretty dark book, so there are a lot of content warnings in here. So
yeah.
When we say mass murder, it's not just implied mass murder, it's like literal mass murder committed by the protagonist. So yeah, as a warning.
Though it is in the middle of a war. I want to point that out.
Yes, it is in the middle. We will talk about it.
Yeah.
This week we read Enna Burning by Shannon Hale. This is the second book in the Books of Bayern series, a collection of 4 books set in the world of magical linguistics. Every component of life, tree, animal, and human has a language, and it's up to the characters to figure it out. This book is about Enna, who we met in the first book, and is set about 2 years after the events of the first book. Enna's brother dies after discovering a book that teaches the fire language. After he dies, Enna takes up this fire language to help her country win a war against the neighboring country, Tira. But the fire has a tendency to consume, and Enna has some problems keeping the kindling small. There's a horrible kidnapping by the warlord Sealeth, some escape antics, some betrayal, some light romance with Finn, and of course, lots and lots of burning to an eventually devastating, war-ending climax. As the fire within her begins to take its toll, Enna and her friends must race against time to figure out how to balance the force of flame.
Dun dun dun!
Yep.
I don't know if I would call him a warlord.
Well, whatever he is.
Yeah, he's
an army captain.
He's a captain, that's what it is.
With people speaking. He has people speaking, which makes him extra deadly.
But we'll talk about that during characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
To get into our own backgrounds with the book?
Absolutely. So, like with the last one, I think I read this around middle school. I definitely read this book. I don't know if I read the 3rd book in the series. I can't remember. I probably did, but who knows? So I probably first read it around middle school. I did not remember it as much as I thought I would. I remembered Goose Girl a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, that is a fairy tale structure, and this one does not have as strict of a fairy tale structure, so it's a lot different.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so I read this book the same year I read the Goose Girl. Honestly, I think it was pretty soon after. My grandma sent me a copy of the book when I lived in Hungary, and I read it during Hungarian class at my little Hungarian school.
Aww.
And it was a good time, and I did like the book. I didn't like it as much as the Goose Girl. And even though I didn't take it as seriously as I would now with all the darkness in this book, I was still left a little confused about how to feel about Enna, especially since I loved her in the Goose Girl. She was one of my favorite characters, but this book made it a lot more complicated. And I think I came away liking her, but my opinion did go down I think that I liked her less than some of the other characters in the final 2 books. But
I mean, she becomes a more brutal character. So
yeah.
She is a lot less likable.
Yeah, and I think that the next book, River Secrets, does a lot to repair. It allows Enna the time to deal with what she did and the trauma of the whole war in the situation, which I think offers a healing approach to Enna's character, but also I am not a big fan of River Secrets from what I remember. We'll see when we eventually reread it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I liked it. It was nice and dark. I definitely was. There was a lot of retconning that Shannon Hale. Shannon
Shannon
Hale.
Hale. Really? I didn't notice that much.
You know, with the balancing with the magic,
Mm-hmm.
she obviously did not intend that in the Goose Girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
So
I
I
think
think that
she...
that was
Death of the author. Author dead.
no, but I think that was something she added later, which was apparent
Agreed.
to me that this wasn't really supposed to be a series or something like that.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. This definitely gives off the vibes of like, I don't know, it was like added in later. We have a 2-year time skip. Like, it is
Yeah,
not a direct continuation.
Izzy's not doing so hot.
I know. I'm so sad. Also, okay, wait. Um, let's talk first impressions and then let's do characters because I have so much to say and
Yep.
the just like the fact that Enna calls Ani Izzy still, we should talk about that.
Yes.
But first impressions on the reread. You clearly liked it. You liked how dark it was. Anything else?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, my
You're the
first
only other
impressions?
person here.
Well, sometimes in this particular isolated climate, you never know who you're actually talking to.
Fair enough.
You know, start to see your friends in the wall.
Okay.
Oh, Jacqueline,
Well,
I
that's
miss
kind of
you.
concerning. Sophie, please. Do not start picturing me in the wall. That is disturbing.
You live in the wall now.
I don't want that.
Okay. It's been a hard time. Oh, well, first impressions. Um, um, I on reread, I liked it again. It's a serious book, and I was just thinking how much I really wanted to discuss it when I was rereading, and I'm still confused. Like, I need to work out my opinions because I like how I feel of Enna. It's still confusing, but ultimately, I like the way that there's a lot of healing that has to happen in this book for a bunch of characters, and it's not the relationships change and they aren't simple, and yeah, there's a lot of complexity here, so I like that.
Definitely agreed. I think on this reread, I also very much enjoyed this book. I thought it was a very interesting addition to the world of Goose Girl. In particular, like it's you can obviously tell it's by the same author. Shannon Hale has a very particular writing style, which is very fun. It was a fast read. I read it in like 2 days, um, which was really nice and fun. It moved at a good pace. I think you can definitely tell that the writing kind of improved. Like I could tell that it was of a slightly higher caliber, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah, but at the same time you could also tell that it hadn't been worked on for as long of a time as the Goose Girl was.
Yeah, it was definitely a shorter story, both in terms of like actual length of the book and in terms of like the in-world time that passes. Because like Goose Girl, that covers at least a year. And I think Enna Burning also covers at least a year, but it feels like more of the condensed time happens towards the end.
Yeah.
So kind of like how we were talking last time about how Goose Girl kind of has a bloated beginning and then like picks up really fast. I feel like this book had it worked at a really good clip. So then when the condensing of time happened later on in a couple of traveling scenes, I didn't mind that.
Yeah. There's a lot more action in this book. Like
Oh
in the
yeah.
Goose Girl, there's a lot of time for Ani to explore some things and figure out her feelings and just kind of
Yeah.
like learn to live in the new city and the new situation as a Goose Girl. This was just like, there's a war going on, and Enna needs to figure out how to stop it.
Yeah. And Enna is going to be instrumental in stopping it.
Yeah, you don't get any of Enna's day-to-day life in this. Everything is a wartime in this book.
Though we get a little bit of her daily life at the beginning.
Yeah, the very beginning.
Sort of. But that's like
For
just when things are starting to change.
yeah.
Which I think is good. I think this book does a good, like, to talk about Shannon Hale's writing style again real fast, I think she does a really good job dropping you at the beginning of the action.
Yes.
And now we should probably murder the author and talk about characters.
It's really hard to murder the author.
I know, especially in this book, because,
The series.
yeah, in this, anything that Shannon Hale writes, just like, it has her thumbprint on it.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
like
that what
so her.
I love these books because it's a sequel, so you benefit from, I mean, it's you benefit from reading all the other books for like the world building, but they are
Yeah,
all standalones, which I love. It's like my
that's
favorite thing.
true. Yeah, yeah.
That's the ideal way of doing a book series for me, where you don't have cliffhanger endings, but you just
I
have
will say,
standalones.
I think it works really well with the type of stories that these books are telling, and also the fact that we get a new main character each time. I would say for some series, I like it when there's a cliffhanger ending and like it makes sense that like the next book is just picks up right where the last one.
Yeah, I guess if you're not switching the main character, it makes
Like,
sense to leave a lot of the end up for interpretation.
yeah, but I think that with this series, because we are switching to a new main character, like we can get a satisfying character arc in each book, and that's what allows them to feel like standalones, but we know that they're still connected because like the characters show up and the
Yeah.
world's the same.
Okay. With that, characters?
Yes. Shall we begin with Enna?
Yes.
Okay.
It was complicated.
It is complicated. Um, okay. So I think a lot about her at the beginning of the story and like how she ends up where she ends up made a lot of sense to me knowing what we know about her character. So like obviously she was gonna get bored sitting around the palace with Izzy. Like obviously that was gonna happen. She's not the type who likes to just sit around and do nothing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that she like made the decision to go home. And of course her mom dies, so she has to go home. Um, I think one of the things that confused me is why she stayed for so long at home instead of going back to the city where like most of her friends are in the city and like
Yeah.
she had a life there. And I don't know, given Enna's character, like life in the forest seems too boring for her.
Yeah, though I will say, I think it said something about her mother dying,
Yeah,
and
no,
she did.
it
I don't
does.
know when her mother died, but it seems like she went to the city pretty quickly. Like she was there for a while before Ani got there
Hmm.
in the Goose Girl, and I think that going back to the forest could have been a way to actually process her grief and
That's a
figure
good point.
figure things out.
I think she also probably stayed because of her brother,
Oh,
whose name I looked up. It's
Leifer?
Leifer. What a name! What a name! But I think she probably like felt like she had to stay for her brother. like not only to like process her own grief, but like in order to look after her brother, who I don't think has ever worked in the city, and has lived in the forest his
Oh.
whole life.
Yeah, her
Um,
brother seems.
okay, wait. This is actually something I want to talk about with um, Leifer's character. I wish we had been able to see more of him before he learned the fire language.
Agreed.
Because I feel like we get told that he's changing a lot, but I don't know, he just seems very like all over the place instead of like, oh, he was this stable person before and now he's all over the place, you know?
Yeah. To be honest, like in the Goose Girl, we get the benefit of having that, as you said, bloated beginning where we get a lot of Ani's childhood and her relationships with her family and all of
Hmm.
that. But with Enna, we don't really get that same background with the characters. And although I'm glad we didn't, I'm glad it's just picked up from basically where the book left off. I
Yeah.
still think that maybe it should have had like a moment where it went maybe a flashback or something, just like more time for Enna to really think about how Leifer was before, because my opinion of Leifer is completely biased against him because he burns Enna's skirt or
Yeah.
tries to burn her, and he's like, we should burn the queen, the king. And I know it's basically like he's under the influence of the fire. So I'll give him that benefit of the doubt because he is under the influence of something really, really powerful that's taking hold of his mind because there is this desire to burn and keep burning. But it is the only way we ever see Leifer.
Yeah, definitely. I also, do we know how old he was? Because I think he's older than Enna,
Yeah, he's
right?
older. I think he's probably like 22 or something like that.
Okay, so I didn't think about this while I was reading, but after, when I was like thinking back over the book and like writing out my notes and everything, why isn't he married? It seems like the kids in the forest get married around like mid 20s, if not younger,
They don't all
because
get married.
they don't all get married, but I don't know. Like, obviously, their dad is not in the picture. Their
Mm-hmm.
mom has just died.
Yeah.
Um, so either like it's just Leifer and Enna right now in
Yeah.
their home. So like why wouldn't he want to go and like start his own family? You know? Like maybe he's just not into starting a family, maybe he doesn't want that, but like I would have liked a little bit of an explanation for it because
Mm-hmm.
it felt kind of weird. Like I don't get what he's doing. And I feel like if I knew what his life was like and like what his, I don't know, expectations for himself were,
Yeah.
maybe it would make more sense like why Enna was hanging around.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he was really lost and he was looking for a purpose, which might have been why he was so glued to the fire in the first place and why he was so willing to change complete directions when the war started. He's like, I'm going to burn the king and queen of Bayern. And then he's like, oh, yay, there's a war with Tira. I can burn everyone. And then
Yeah.
that also probably impacted why he died so quickly when he burned all those people.
Yeah, because towards the end of the book, Enna talks about like how it felt to be burning a large amount of people and things, and like she felt like she could surrender and like she wanted to die because she was doing this terrible thing and she didn't want to live with that. So like it makes sense why he was so susceptible to the fire. It seems like a very powerful force in the first place, and then also like he didn't have a lot to go back to.
Yeah.
Like he didn't seem to have a purpose. It seemed like him and Enna were just kind of living day to day, and like Enna has her life back in the city to hold on to. Like she has her friends, but we don't know anything about Leifer's life. Like
Yeah.
also, I don't know, it didn't make sense to me like why would the youngest kid go work in the city and not the eldest child, you know?
Yeah, he might have been taking care of the house.
And their mother.
Yeah, and then chopping the wood and doing all the forest stuff.
He does seem to have like a job somewhere within the forest
I
community.
just picture him chopping wood.
That's all he does all day. Chop, chop, chop.
Yeah. Okay, so Enna.
Yes.
I
Um,
still
mhm,
I love her and I want her to be okay so badly.
mhm.
But also, she got really manipulated by the fire in this book. Like she did some terrible things.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, I think, like, from seeing Leifer beforehand, like, obviously we already know that the fire kind of like takes you over and like drives you to a purpose, and makes
Mhm.
you want to follow that purpose more so than you might want to otherwise. So clearly there's that, but also like, yeah, she does some terrible things. Like, something that I found interesting was like how superstitious she is, because she like makes this comment to one of the people in Izzy's council and is like, "Oh, we should do what is it, an augury?"
Yeah, the arguery, whatever it is. This isn't an important
Basically, it is an important plot point, and
yeah.
basically, it's a fight to the death between someone who represents Bayern and someone who represents Tira, and basically, whoever wins the fight, like, that's who the gods or a higher power like wants to win the war. Like, it's supposed to be predicting the war. And given how things play out in the entire book, it seems like it's a pretty accurate prediction.
So
um,
how it happens is that Finn is the one to represent Bayern because he's like becoming a man.
we'll talk about Finn in a second. I love him.
he's he wants to win it because he overhears Anna like saying that she wants a real man and like not
Wait,
the
is that
fourth.
really why he like starts doing all of his stuff?
Yeah,
That's
because he
sad.
overhears Anna saying she wants a real man.
Oh, Finn.
Yeah, yeah. So he starts getting super into fighting and war. He gets like really good. But the thing is, so he elects to represent Bayern, and then there's this Tyrion soldier, and Finn is losing, but then Anna heats the hilt of the sword, and then Finn is able to win with Anna's help. So then Anna realizes that the way to win the war is for Bayern to win the war is with her help. So she decides she concocts this plan that she's going to burn the enemy camps little by little to help to like force them to retreat out of Bayern.
Mhm.
And she's really trying to make sure that she has control. She's like she made some rules for herself so she's not going to burn a person, and she's only going to do small fires.
She breaks her rules pretty fast.
She breaks her rules when she thinks it's like a life or death situation. She does burn a person, but when it comes to life or death situations in books, um the thing that people don't consider is if you did not have this power, there might still be a way out of it. Like there are other things to consider.
Mm.
Obviously, it's a life or death situation. You're not going to be thinking about those other things, and you're going to use whatever tools you have at your disposal. But given that she had Razzo and Finn with her, she could have made another choice.
Yeah, I also always find it interesting when people do have like these superpowers, they don't feel the need to like cultivate any other skills. So
Yeah.
like maybe this just isn't a thing in the culture of Bayern, but like Enna probably should have learned how to use a sword.
Yes,
Like
agreed.
she should know how to defend herself.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe that's like some sexism thing in Bayern where it seems like women don't really fight
No.
unless they have these magical powers.
Yeah.
Um,
Woohoo, gender
also,
roles.
true. Also, one other thing I wanted to just like make sure that we make clear when Enna helps out in the fight with Finn, she heats up the hilt of the sword of the man that Finn is fighting. So not Finn's sword, but she like uses it as a distraction to give Finn time to recuperate and then like, do his thing.
Yeah. And then
Um
this prediction turns out to be accurate.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. It turns
Yeah.
like the entire war basically follows that trajectory where Bayern is kind of struggling and fighting and they don't have the strength to win the war. And then Enna like does this one devastating thing that distracts the enemy. Um,
Yes.
and then they win.
Yes, and to be clear about what Anna specifically does, she burns, I can't remember the exact number, but she either burns, I think she burns a third of Tira's army. So she
That's
kills,
a lot.
yes, she kills a lot of people. And before she was captured by this Sealef, this guard, this Tyran guard, who tries to get her to burn against Bayern and burn Bayern people. He has people speaking, so he's very manipulative, and he also uses Razzo and Finn. They get captured, and he uses them as insurance to make sure that she'll do what they ask.
Yeah. Let's talk about Silif's character
Okay, real quick,
because
real
he's an
quick.
asshole.
Well, he gets Enna to burn Bayern too. So not only is Enna responsible for the deaths of a third of Tira's army, she's also responsible for the deaths of
Like a
some of her
handful of Bayern
some of
people.
her own people.
Yeah. And like Silif is able to do this because he has people speaking and like I totally forgot that he had people speaking. Like I did not remember that at all. It was a huge surprise to me to like find that out. And I don't know why I didn't realize it sooner cuz looking back it's so obvious. Like obviously his voice is like honey smooth and Enna just like melts in his hands basically. And yeah, he has her drugged, but like it's a little bit too easy to convince her to turn against her countrymen.
Yes.
I also think that he is a very good example of how like abusers isolate their victims and then turn their emotions into like relationships against them. So like one
Mm-hmm.
of the main things that he does to convince Enna that she's like on her own and should go to Tira's side is he lies to her and says that Razzo and Finn were there to try and assassinate her. Not true. Obviously, they're there to rescue her. Um, but he lies to her and says that her country has abandoned her. They are trying to kill her so that she can't hurt anyone and can't like live her life or anything. And it's just so manipulative. He makes her feel like she's completely on her own and he's the only one who cares about her and all that. It's like textbook abuser behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And this is a really horrible, this is really sad. Anna has so much guilt over this and trauma from this abusive situation. She also feels extremely guilty for like buying into Sealef when he was manipulating her and he had people speaking. And Izzy, oh my gosh, Izzy or Ani, I like Ani better personally, but
I do too.
yeah, Ani was so great. She was like, Anna, he has people speaking. There's nothing you can do. And she was like
Yeah.
making sure like you're not going, don't you dare victim blame. It's not your fault. Like
And, like, honestly, Ani was the best person to tell her those things, because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if Enna knows this, but, like, Ani's mother has people speaking as well. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
Ani knows firsthand what the power of people speaking is. She had to grow up with it.
Yeah.
Like, she knows how manipulative people who have people speaking, even if they don't acknowledge or know it themselves, she knows the power that they have.
Yeah.
Um, and like she's really just trying to be like, it's not your fault. And honestly, it would have been worse if Anna hadn't been fighting back as much. Like, Ani makes sure that she knows that she was really strong for holding back as long as she did, which I think is so good.
Yeah. And considering the power of the fire, it's a really it seems like a really horrible power, and we'll see this in later books.
Hmm.
Anna holds out for a really long time, and she's able, yeah, she eventually does basically like allow herself to surrender, and it's horrible. It's bad. It's
It
bad, but
almost kills her.
yeah,
Like, she almost dies in this book
and
from holding out for so long.
Ani keeps having to put wind in her.
Hmm. I think
Yeah.
this book found a good line between like describing the horribleness that she must have been feeling, like just pain wise, and still like letting us know that she was in pain and like this was a terrible situation.
Yes.
Like, I think there was a good line that was found in the
Yes.
writing.
And then like letting us also know that she's not faultless here. She did
Mm,
not have to kill a third of Tira's army. Like that's
yeah.
horrible.
Yeah. It made sure, like, the narrative didn't like minimize any of the trauma anywhere.
Yeah.
It like made sure that everything was like, okay, this is all terrible. I think we can acknowledge that.
Yes. And something I do like with the books in the later series is that people are still recovering from the trauma of what happens in this book. It's not like everything is fine after the end.
I mean, even in this book, we see a couple of instances where people like don't really know how to handle the fact that now that they have a queen, they have Ani as their queen, and they don't really know the full story. So you can already see the repercussions of the first book, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was really neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see it as early as when we like meet Leifer, and he's like, "Oh, she barely does anything. She's just there," and like
Yeah.
Enna
Weird
has to
foreigner
like,
queen.
yeah, and Enna's like, "Don't you fucking dare talk bad about this queen in front of me. She is the best," because she
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I think that there was a good world building well, we can talk about it in world building, where
Yeah.
the royalty is like very isolated and people still have
Mm,
their opinions and aren't like directly connected to it and don't actually know who the people are, just know that they're important and responsible for everything that's going on.
yeah.
So obviously there's some resentment that will
Um,
happen.
do we think we've talked about Ani or
No, not I
Enna?
don't think we've talked. Yeah, Anna. I think we should talk about Ani.
Yes, let's talk about Ani. So first important thing to mention about her is that uh, they don't call her Ani at all in this book. They call her
Or for the
Izzy the
rest of the
entire
series.
time. Oh,
Izzy.
really?
Yeah, for the rest of the series she's called Izzy,
Okay.
which is not
We
my
should probably
personal taste.
get used to calling her Izzy then.
I'm just going to call her Ani just because
Okay.
I want her to be okay. I guess if she considers herself as Izzy, I will call her Izzy. Like the name that if she wants to be called Izzy, if she thinks of herself as Izzy, I guess she's Izzy.
I mean, what does Garrick call her?
Izzy.
Okay. So she says,
Yeah,
okay, so Garrick is now her husband. They've been married for like 2 years.
she's
They're still
pregnant.
cute. They're still cute. I like them. And
Yeah,
yes, they've been trying to get pregnant for like 2 years because apparently everyone wants a heir or an heir. A hair. Ugh.
Conrad wants a hair.
But anyways, Izzy finally gets pregnant, which we don't
Mm-hmm.
find out until like the very end, even though I thought it was kind of obvious. Um,
Yeah.
like the first time when Enna mentions like, "Oh, I was feeling extra body heat off of Izzy," I was like, "Oh, she's pregnant."
Mm-hmm.
Like that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And she ends up giving birth, well, before they even get back to Bayern, or
Yeah.
before they get back to the capital.
She was so strong.
Yeah.
Izzy's like literally the strongest person ever.
Yeah, Izzy is struggling because the wind power is starting to take its toll on her. Like, she's constantly hearing stuff from the wind, and she doesn't have a break. The wind is constantly telling her things.
Yeah, it's similar to how the fire is kind of starting to overtake Enna, but the fire obviously burns a lot faster.
Yeah.
Haha, jokes, burns.
Yeah. Fire. There are going to be a lot of fire jokes in this. Apologies.
I'm already tired of them.
You tired of them?
Is that a pun?
Or are
I'm
you?
so.
Would you say that you're burning out?
Oh. Oh, no. Why? I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's put another log on this and continue.
Oh my god, fuck you. These are terrible jokes.
Uh,
What
she
were we
has
even talking about?
Izzy has to
Izzy.
drink this tea, that kind of helps. It's this weird drug. So she's having to literally drug herself to lessen the effects of the wind. So she's not doing so hot, but she puts her life at risk. She cuts off all her hair to,
Her hair, which is so important to her.
yes, she cuts it all off to tell a story to Enna, who's in the camp. She disguises herself as a Tyrian
She's
woman.
Yeah, she sneaks into the Tyrian camp and like tells a story to some soldiers who are outside of Enna's tent where she's being kept. And the story is
Mhm.
basically this whole metaphor for like, we want to come save you, we haven't given up on you, but like we can't because like there's a fucking war going on.
Yeah.
And she also like
Oh,
finds a way to tell Enna that Seliph has people speaking, which is
yeah.
so good.
Yeah, she's the best friend. She's like, in the first book, it was really like Enna who was like supporting her all the time, and now that Izzy is in that role and she's like really supporting Enna. It's like a really healthy friendship. They're all like
Yeah.
supporting each other, and it's like equal, except for when there is a wrinkle in this, in that Enna does try to burn Izzy at one point. They have an argument, and it's pretty
See,
horrible.
that I saw as very parallel to when Enna's brother burns her skirt on accident.
Mm-hmm.
Like, clearly, neither of them mean to hurt the people that they love, but it's like a way to show us very quickly and viscerally that, like, the fire is overwhelming in its power. And
Yes.
it, like, leads people to do things that they super would never do normally. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was like a really cool metaphor, or not metaphor, like a cool parallel.
Yes.
Because like you see Enna going down the same path as Leifer, and then she doesn't. Like yes, she does this
Yes.
terrible thing, but she comes back, and she
Yeah,
doesn't die.
yeah. You also get to see how much Izzy has matured. Like, she's a
It's so
queen.
good. She's a
She's a
fucking queen now.
yep.
Oh my god, she's so good at it too. And like so at the very beginning of the war, um Garrick's father, who's the current king, dies in battle. So Garrick just straight up becomes king and she becomes the queen. Um and it's like Oh my god. Which actually I really quickly wanted to say, Garrick handled that so well. Like that moment when he like finds out that his father is dead and then he has to like rally the troops again. Like
Yeah.
top-notch skills. I wrote in my
Yes.
notes that he handles his emotions and his public image very well.
Yeah, and Izzy and Garrick are so well matched. Like,
They're such a healthy relationship. They
yeah.
love each other so much.
Yes. And then like Izzy's been through a lot. She can be there to support Garrick through his grief because she's also lost her father.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's oh my gosh. Okay, so should we talk about Finn and Razzo?
One thing I wanted to say before we move on, because we should talk about those
Yeah.
two, Izzy, I wanted to know if she has seen her family since marrying Garrick. Like, has she seen her mother? How's her brother doing? Like, what's up? What's up with them?
Yes. I am
Like,
so annoyed that this book series, like you get at the beginning of the Goose Girl, you get a lot about her family, and then they kind of ditch them for the rest of the entire series. You don't
yeah,
hear
it's like
anything about them.
we start at a completely different kingdom, and then
Yes.
we end up somewhere completely different, and like we stay there forever. And
Kildare gets
like,
kicked to the curb.
yeah, which is sad because, uh, like, Izzy has grown so much as a person, especially in like her understanding of the world since she was in what's it called? Kildenry?
Kildare.
Kildenry, yeah. So like since that time, like she's come into her wind speaking, like she's okay with who she is as a person, she's a kinder person, she's a good queen, she like stepped into that role and like did it even though her mother was like so mean to her.
Yeah. Queen of empathy. My gosh.
Mhm. Oh my god, yes. Like, oh god, I just love how Izzy's backstory, like her family kind of goes away, but like the impact that her formative years of life had on her, that never goes away.
Yeah.
Like the growth that she makes and the empathy that she gains, she just like, oh, she keeps getting better and I love it.
Yeah. Um, and in terms of, I'm just wondering if the reason why Izzy is not really like going back to her family and talking to them so much is because she's resentful of the fact that they sent her to Bayern with half an like guard that's full of like traitors, and that her people speaking mother didn't seem to see it coming and didn't seem to really.
Not that they could have known, but
Well, yeah, but still, it could be an irrational thing.
yeah, she probably does feel at least in her position, I would probably feel a little bit of resentment towards the family that she left behind for not like teaching her how to be a better person, you know?
Yeah,
Just like she never learned how to like read people.
yeah. I
And I
think
don't know, her mother should have taught her that.
her mother is quite bad, but her siblings, like, I would ditch your siblings. Like, they're going through a lot. Don't you want to, like, help them through?
Yeah. We are both also older siblings. So we're
Yes.
maybe a little bit biased.
Well, she's also an older sibling, so
Yeah. But she didn't, like, we talked about this last time, she wasn't that close with her siblings. So, like, I
yeah,
can
she's
get,
very isolated.
yeah, she was really isolated. So, like, I get why she doesn't feel the urge to go back. But, like, she's going through a really hard time, and they're probably going through a rough transition period as well. Like, her brother has to
Mm-hmm.
become king now.
Yikes.
Um, okay, but that's like a completely different story.
Yes.
So let's talk about
Razzo?
Finn and Razzo. Should
Finn
we do Razzo
first.
first? Oh, Finn first? We can do Finn first. I just
Because
have
Finn's
less
the
to say
love
about
interest.
Razzo.
Okay, let's do Razzo really quickly then.
Okay, so I thought initially that he was going to be like another love interest for Enna, and I thought it was going to be like this love triangle thing, and I am so glad that it didn't turn out that way.
Mm-mm. Razzo is, seems like the kind
Razzo's
of
like
person.
her, it's like his, like, he's her little brother more than anything,
Yeah,
which I like. That's a good thing.
yeah. That they're just friends. He's just like a really good friend. And he
Yeah,
seems to like be really good at providing some fun, like a good fun friend.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, he's the main character of River Secrets, so
I think that'll be interesting.
it will
Because
be interesting.
I feel like right now he hasn't really grown that much. Like, obviously, a war changes everyone, like, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he got the least character development out of
Yeah.
everyone who we've seen before.
Though we're also looking at him through both Izzy and Enna, who he might portray himself as like he wants to show this really happy face and jokey face
Mm,
all the time, but like internally there's a lot of other stuff going on.
that is very probable. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's really all I have to say about Razzo. I'm just glad he wasn't another
yeah.
love interest.
And he didn't ditch Enna. He was
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, good friend.
Very good friend. Finn?
Finn wants to be a manly man for Enna.
I love Finn. I love his character development in this book. I don't even care if you think it's ridiculous.
I think it's
I
ridiculous,
love
but
it.
realistic. Because
Yes.
you can see this in the real world too. Someone makes a comment about how you want a manly man, and someone's like, I can be that manly man for you.
See, I don't even think it's just that. Like, I think that definitely probably has, like, an impact on him and he's probably thinking about it, but also, like, just the fact that his country is now at war and, like, he needs to become stronger in order to protect the people that he cares about, including Enna.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he just like he throws himself into his training, which makes sense. He clearly does not want to deal with his feelings towards Enna at this moment in time. So it makes sense that he throws himself into other things like becoming stronger and training and all that.
Yeah,
And I liked the
probably.
detail. Oh, what? Yeah.
I think he has like a big prove himself complex.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I also thought it was a really good detail when he like steps into the ring to like fight the Tyrion prisoner for the like prophesizing thingy maboober. Anna like has this thought in her head where she's like, he's just a boy, he's not strong enough for this. She does prove to be right, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really good moment because what I was thinking reading that was like, he's been training this entire time. He's probably a lot better than you know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that just really pointed out how little Enna has been hanging out with Finn in like those first couple of weeks of the war.
Yeah, and honestly, since the whole thing with Celia in the first book, like it seems like they've obviously been like getting closer, but then there might have been some like awkwardness and like people they're unsure of where their relationship stands, and they're
Yes.
both in the forest in different places.
But they
Oh,
still hang out together sometimes.
slow burn over like 3 years,
More than 3 years.
more than
Oh
three
my
years
god.
because there's drama on the River Secrets with them still.
Oh god. Seriously? I just want them to be happy.
Yeah, and
They're
Finn
so
also
good
makes
together.
such a big deal about the fact that Razzo and Anna are sleeping in the same
Okay, see that?
tent.
I okay, like we know at this point that he very clearly has a crush on Enna. But I
Yeah,
like that he's not really creepy or overprotective, and hear me out on this because what you just described could be described as overprotective.
no, he has a sense of honor.
Yeah, he has a sense of honor. He's just a respectful kid who's
Mm-hmm.
like he knows his mother would murder him if he did anything like that. So like
Oh yeah, his mother is a force of her own.
I missed her in this book. I
Yeah, me
wanted her
too.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
yes.
I
I
feel
just
like
thought
mhm.
I just thought the tent thing was really funny where like Enna and Raza were like, what the nothing was happening. We were just sharing a freaking tent, dude.
It's like,
And
don't sleep outside, you're gonna be cold. Get in here.
yeah. Yeah, and then then he does get in there and then there's this moment he's like, I've wanted this.
I
To
just
Enna.
wanted to be near you.
Yes.
The height of romance.
Shannon
This is
Hale
some
knows how to write romance and that she doesn't write anything creepy. She does like friends to
this
like
is some
friend-soldiers really
Jane Austen level shit. Shannon Hale is the new Jane Austen. Prove me wrong.
well. She literally wrote an adult novel called Austenland.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. That got made into a movie.
Yeah, I have never read it, but
I haven't
she
either.
clearly has some Jane Austen influences.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think the way that she writes romance in particular, like clearly Jane Austen inspired.
Yeah.
Um, but with Finn specifically, like, I don't know. I like his character arc. I feel like it's a very natural character arc given the circumstances that he's going through at this point in time, and the things like happening around him. One thing that I didn't really put together until after reading the book that is super fucked up when you think about it is I don't think Enna ever tells him about how she helped out during his fight. Like, I don't think she ever tells him about that in this book,
Yeah.
which is kind of fucked up.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean,
But,
honestly, I can understand why she would be hesitant not to,
hmm
because she wants him to feel like he won that.
yeah, like it's important for him to have that confidence.
Yeah, but also I think that's something that she could tell him later. Something I do like about their relationship though is that, and this is more how it plays out in River Secrets, is that Anna needs serious time to heal. So they're not going to be
Mhm.
jumping into anything super serious right away. They're going to be like taking it slow to let both of them heal.
Yeah,
So
and I think
yeah.
Finn is the perfect person for Enna. Like they even explicitly say it in the book. Like she's not the most patient person, and he is. So like she doesn't need to be more patient because he already is patient. Like they
They are
balance each other out so well.
they are what Katniss and Peeta wanted to be. They are
You're
Katniss and
right.
Peeta done so much better.
You know, I see it. I see it. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Okay, that's Finn. Are there any Sealef? Should we talk about we already kind of did.
We
He's
already talked
horrible.
about him. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
bad. Bad guy. Is there
Okay,
any other
I think
characters that we need to talk about? That's like the
honestly I don't
main
think so.
ones.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Oh, actually, wait. One thing I wanted to talk about with Sealift really fast that we didn't get a chance to talk about earlier is at the very like the last time that he like meets Enna and he's like been stalking her through the Tyrian countryside and then he like
Oh, yes.
confronts her and Enna and Izzy are like not in the best place. They're both like very much overwhelmed by their respective elements at this point in time and like not having a great time and he's just being his creepy self. Finn like rushes in to try and help rescue them and all that fun stuff. But the way that he actually dies is with his own men killing him. His
Oh, yeah.
own men kill him. Which just
Yeah.
like that made sense to me on so many different levels because like okay, on one hand, yeah, he's a creepy dude in general. Obviously, he's gone a little bit crazy at this point. It makes sense that people now want him dead. But for those Tyrian soldiers in particular, like it seems like they've been on the run for a while, like at least a couple of months following Enna, and they clearly haven't had a bath in a hot minute. They seem like they're outcasts from the Tyrian army because of what their commander did. So it makes sense that they would betray him because he fucked up their lives so much. And it's just, it
Yeah.
was such a good detail. I loved it.
Yeah. And it also makes sense because with a lot of people in powerful positions that have a lot of like corruption and some dicey dealings and all this horrible stuff, and often their undoing is what the people they put around them and the corruption, like what they did themselves.
I also think it was interesting to see like how having his people speaking kind of get thrown back in his face kind of broke him, you know? Because like
Yeah.
yeah, like that's kind of what does it. I don't know, I found that interesting.
Yeah. Oh my.
Okay, can we move on to world building?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should probably just like for the sake of our audience who might not have read this book, we should talk a little bit about what happens at the very end and how Enna and Izzy find balance, and then jump into the world building.
Yeah.
Because my first world building comment is about that whole situation.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is there's these people living, I think it's, I don't know what direction it is from Bayern, but in another,
in the south.
Yeah, in the south. Yes, that's what it is. In the south, there's these people who are rumored to be fire worshippers, and basically they're rumored to like have control over their abilities. So then Izzy risks her life while she's pregnant and takes Enna to these people in order to try and figure out how to save Enna's life, because this is after she's done like the mass murder thing. She's like been in a fever coma for days. Like she's not in a good place. So they travel south and find these people. And there's a couple of things tossed around. They go a little bit back and forth about different ways that they could save Enna. But once the people there find out that Izzy has wind speaking abilities, they basically just like have the two of them teach each other their elements. So like Enna teaches Izzy fire speech, and Izzy teaches Enna wind speech, and this basically balances everything out for both of them. Anything you want to
add? In terms of the balancing it out, I just have a comment about it, as you do, which is why you did the whole thing. It makes sense, even though it does feel very retconned, and I don't like that about it. I wish it had been built from the beginning, but like it's impossible to do, so whatever. The fact that these are nature elements, it kind of like follows what they do in nature, which makes sense with the wind and the fire and the water and the fire. Like the reason why they go to Yasid is because Izzy has heard of people who have found balance with the fire because they also learn water, which takes a while to learn apparently. Like
they don't teach it though. They have to naturally develop it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, so the thing with fire that to explain later is that it's the easiest language to learn and also the most corruptible.
And it seems to be the most common.
Yeah.
It seems to be the most common in terms of like there's this entire group of people who are naturally born with fire speaking abilities.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's probably one of the ones that like one of the languages that is like easiest to identify.
Yeah, because you can feel heat.
Yeah.
But the way it works is that you have like there's like a hollow place in your chest, and you feel the heat, and then you draw it into the hollow place, and then so you can have the heat. You have store the heat there, and then you can like put it out, and that becomes on some kindling and then it becomes fire.
Yeah.
Which is less
But
complicated than learning to hear words on the wind or whatever.
yeah. And also, like, it's a very obvious power. Like, you're gonna notice if a little kid is, like, burning things up around them. But I feel like in these two books, we've run into a lot of people who have people speaking abilities and they don't seem to know it.
Yeah.
Like, Izzy's mother, I don't think she ever, like, says, oh, I have people speaking or whatever. It's just,
Yeah.
we're told that.
And part of the reason why Izzy is able to fight back marginally against her mother is because she doesn't know it, so she hasn't really developed it in the same way as Celia has.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I think that is also something so interesting about people speaking that, like, if you don't know that you have it and you're not conscious of it, you're still a very, like, manipulative person, especially how we saw in this book with Seliph. Um, but if you do know that you have it and you do develop it, it becomes 20,000 times stronger, which is very
Yes.
scary.
We will talk about people speaking in greater detail in Forestborn, the
Yes,
last
we
book in the series.
will.
I'm excited for that one because
Me too.
it's honestly probably my least favorite book in the series. It's the third most entertaining for me to reread, but it's like River Secrets I get bored, but also I think it is the worst book in terms of like the plot and the writing.
I'm pretty sure it's the first book that I read in the series.
Yeah. Definitely
So,
you will have a different perspective than I do when we get to it.
yeah. But going back to world building, the reason why I wanted to bring up the ending is because I wish that we had learned more about the fire rain people.
Yes.
Like, that is one of the biggest gaps in the world building that I wish had been filled in. Here are some of the questions that I thought of. How did their society develop? Like,
Uh-huh.
how did they become what they are? Will things change for them now that they know elements can be taught? Because it's made clear that none of them learn the elements. They're only born with fire speaking abilities, and then they somehow, through meditation, develop rain abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But now that Izzy and Enna have proven to these people that elements can be taught, is that going to revolutionize how things happen? Are people going to stop dying? Like,
Yeah.
what are the repercussions of that?
Yes. Yeah, there are so many things. So, with that, is it beneficial for this information to be out there for people who might develop something like fire or people speaking, which are very corruptive abilities, so
Mm-hmm.
they can find something to balance them out?
What balances people speaking? That's a question I have.
That's answered in the
Okay,
fourth book.
I don't remember it, so don't tell me.
Okay. Yeah. So I also like that you can have multiple things potentially that can balance, like water and wind both work. But I'm wondering, is it worthwhile to have this information out there in the public so people can know a place to go to if they're having trouble with these things? Or does that run the risk of many people developing these abilities? And is there a problem with so many people developing these abilities and them being weaponized somehow?
Yeah, I also think that um, this book, like, I don't know, these books kind of make this claim that there are certain people who are born with the innate ability to speak languages, but there are also people who just, like, have a stronger predisposition towards those
Mm-hmm.
languages. Um, so I feel like something that might Izzy and Garrick might have to take on later in, like, their lives as king and queen is, like, how do we find these people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do we do with them? How do we keep
Yeah.
them safe? How do we keep other people who don't have these abilities safe, especially with people speaking?
Yeah, and it's really hard because I personally, like, as using an analogy to like weapons, I would prefer there to be fewer weapons out there. I don't want a lot of weapons in the world. But at the same time, when you have a few people who have weapons, they carry a lot of power, which is very dangerous because there isn't like a particular way to fight. There isn't a set way to fight back. And also the control of information, having that rest entirely in the monarchy or with people who just already knew, like in Yasid and other places, like that, it also presents a complicated dynamic. So I just don't know whether or not it's good for everyone to know about how these things work, or whether it's something where you develop it and you get like slipped a name, like this is someone to talk to, like if you're experiencing this.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like these are like repercussions of the world building that I'm really interested to have explored, but I feel like Shannon Hale doesn't want to explore them, you know?
Yeah, though I would argue there are hints of this issue that come up in the second book. I mean, the third book, River Secrets,
Okay,
and the fourth book. It's an ongoing conversation. And
that's good.
because one of the characters is literally a queen, like I would worry about other people developing fire without having anything to balance. And I would maybe think about reaching out to these people, kind of doing a rehab thing, like a controlled
Yeah.
rehab with a bunch of people who have these honed abilities and can fight back, and
It
like maybe have
also,
them,
uh-huh.
yeah, and like have them learn wind or something.
Yeah. I also wonder, like, what the genetics of this are, because it seems to be kind of random, but it also seems like people in the same families are, like, more likely to have these abilities or, like, the predisposition to learning the ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm just really interested in, like, this world that's been constructed. And this is another
So
comment that I
cool.
wanted to make about the world building, is that we don't really get that much more world building in Enna Burning than we did in the Goose Girl. Like we get Tira and that whole thing, but because it is such a like a war story, we don't really get to see like normal life anywhere.
No.
Like uh like there's none of that. Um
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like there's still a lot that's left to be explored. And at first I was thinking that like, oh, this is kind of a disappointing thing where like there's this huge world out there and there isn't like Shannon Hale didn't put in the work to like show us more of it. But then I thought maybe this is a good thing because like the fact that she was able to write this world that feels so big and expansive is really impressive. So there's that.
Yeah, and also like it took 3 months to get from Kildenry to Bayern. Like this,
There's that
like
too.
the world, it's not like this world where everything is, it's very easy to like get from one place to another in just a few hours.
Hmm.
And like it's not like a globalized world. There are very different pockets of places that aren't super accessible, and information probably takes a really long time to travel.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's presented as a like a real problem. So I was fine with that. The thing is, like with Yasid, Shannon Hale, you only have white people for the last book, and this is what you do. What were you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
What the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know what she was thinking. I think she was, yeah, that's a good point. Like, what is the ethnicity of the people in Yasid? I'm assuming they're people of color.
They are people of color, and she appropriates Buddhism, and
Ah,
she appropriates on, like she's like, she kind of makes it sound like it's a country of tribes,
mm-hmm.
and it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Not great. Um,
Yeah, also, the country is right there. I know what I just said about people not traveling, but it's right there. People
it's
are
like,
going, you're going to have some migration, so you're going to see people from this country and Bayern. I'm sorry, not everyone is going to be in your like brown hair, brown haired, black haired, like white skin world that you created for yourself in Bayern.
well, I mean, this is a problem that we were running into last time with the whole hair division thingy.
Just not, that's not how hair works. It's not
Yep.
how, there's immigration. There are people going back and forth.
It's not how genetics work.
No, oh my gosh. This and dragon slippers. Like,
Yeah. No, I think actually Dragon Slippers did a pretty okay job
well,
in the
dragon slippers
later
didn't have a
books.
hair division. Okay.
In
Well,
the later books, it does a better job in like showing cultures mixing.
yeah, well, the hair division is one of the stupidest things I've ever.
I agree. It's not
Yes.
great.
Okay, Shannon Hale, this book is very good. The series is very good. The hair division thing, not a fan.
I like how you're talking as though Shannon Hale is going to listen to our podcast.
I don't know.
God, I hope she doesn't.
I really hope so.
Um, oh, the one other world building thing that I wanted to say is that I feel like the world building is centered around the characters in the story, and we don't get more than what we absolutely need,
Mm-hmm.
which is like
Yeah.
an interesting way to write a world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I got.
Yeah, I think Yasid was done in some poor taste. But the thing
Moving
is,
into critical analysis.
yes, the thing with Yasid is that I'm glad it exists. I think that
Yes.
something like that in not like a traditional monarchy system needed to exist. I
Mm.
am sorry that it really was built off of stereotypes of people of color in non-Western cultures. Like that
Mhm.
sucks.
Yeah.
Also, uh, like, oh, yeah. But I'm glad it exists. I hope that it's used more. Unfortunately, it's not used more. Like, I think that
Sad.
what I wish would happen is that maybe like Izzy would kind of ask advice on how, because they Yasid is the experienced country in this. They are the people who have been dealing with this like rehab situation with people who develop fire powers for a long time. So I think that Izzy should ask their advice on how to handle the situation in Bayern, because it's not like the situation's that different. Like Izzy, they are the leaders in this situation, and they could provide some really helpful expertise on how to set up some care for
I
people who fall into similar patterns.
I think Izzy kind of starts to do that as they're leaving. Like they kind of talk about setting up trade and like communication lines, which is good. But I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where this world just is not very connected.
Yeah.
Like people are not communicating um, between countries very easily.
Yeah.
Which
Also,
is like, yeah, like
what
that's
the
a big
heck was the cause of the war? They just wanted land. What? Were they
no, no,
retaking the land
no.
that Baron took before?
I think it was that in past generations, Bayern and Tira had fought before, and Bayern had killed a lot of Tyrans, and it
Mm-hmm.
was probably like a land thing where they also ended up taking land, but that was like
Yeah.
generations ago.
Okay. So, I don't know. It was like a war.
Yeah.
I think that there might have, I personally like some, like, this is a political issue and like something that obviously they they escalated this to violence in a pretty quick amount of time.
Mhm.
though also, like, because of the slow communication, it could have taken a while for things to converge, and then the armies were like, gotta go.
Yeah, they were probably moving armies as they were trying to talk to each other.
Yeah, but I think that it would have been more interesting if there were stronger discussions of what happened with the war. And honestly, I think that would have made sense if this book had been treated as, if the first book had been treated as part of a series with this issue, is if the reason for the alliance with Kildenry was to provide support against Tira because of a brewing conflict that they see happening. And maybe if we could have had Kildenry military support with Bayern because of the alliance, the marriage alliance with Garrick and Izzy, I think that would have made a lot of sense and would have been grounded in some historical context.
Yeah, that would also have kind of messed up, I think, the initial conflict of the Goose Girl, where like they were trying to make the alliance because Bayern was so big and powerful, and Kildare needed that alliance so that they wouldn't get stomped out. And then Celia's whole plan to like kill Kildare anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree.
Like,
I think that
there's definitely a way to do it.
But I think that thinking of this as like a narrative throughout the series that continues.
Yeah.
Like a marriage alliance situation. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the intrigue that was going on that caused the war.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what the hell happened?
Yes. And we find out what happened in the fourth book with this whole thing. But I personally do not agree with that interpretation of what happened, which we will get into.
Okay. We gotta wait a bit.
Okay. Critical analysis.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered like most of the big stuff with what's the country called again?
Tira?
No, the other one. The other
Yasid.
Yasid. I feel like that's like one of the biggest things that stands out in this book as different from Goose Girl, in terms of things that we need to talk about in critical analysis. The one other thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that Enna is Izzy's friend saves her life. Yep. In more than one ways. Because not only does Izzy literally like go to the ends of Earth to like find a way to save Enna, but at the very end, the biggest consequence that Enna faces as like having done what she had done is like she gets stripped of her Queen's Maiden title.
Yeah.
And then they turn around and they make her part of like the king's personal band of 100 men or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like she faces zero consequences, and it's because of her connections with the royal family.
Yeah. Continued gender roles in this book.
Yeah, like the whole men do the fighting, women don't is a big thing in this book, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like this is a lot of other historical literature interpretation. Like this happens in Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well, where magic is really like feminized, and magic is among women because like long history of witches.
Yep.
And whatever. So like the magic is treated as like something that like gives them power, and it's like very gender rated. Like the men get the swords and then the women get the magic.
I will also say that one other thing about this, kind of tying in with Revive the Author, is I don't think Shannon Hale was thinking about how like only men do the fighting. I think that is something that she brought into this book from our world.
Yes.
like, I don't think she constructed this world setting out to put the sexism in there, but because she was working with her own knowledge, like, that's how it ended up.
Well, she explicitly wrote a world with very specific gender roles, and she, like, a lot of people do that. Like, it's a common thing in fantasy, and it's to be expected. It's kind of interesting often to explore like a world around these particular gender roles. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people could do it. At least she's a woman doing it.
Yeah, that's true. Would have been worse if it had been a man.
Oh God. Yeah. If I have to see any other man's, like, sexualized female, like, sexualized,
you can just say Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I hate Game of Thrones.
Same. I never watched the TV show, but I read all of the books.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I can't do Game of Thrones.
Oh my God. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do any fantasy or sci-fi thing that sexualizes non-men.
Yeah.
Like, ew.
Yeah. And especially when they, like, add in the whole, like, violence aspect. We didn't really talk about this earlier at all, but, like, when Enna first gets captured by the Tyrans, like, one of her guards tries to rape her, and, like, he walks into her tent, and it's clearly implied that that is what he is trying to do.
Yes.
He is going in there with the intent of having sex with her, whether she wants to or not. The only thing that stops him is Silith comes in and is like, beats this guy up.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's implied in the last book with the story Enna tells about the women like pulling down their dresses to be like, this is, look at me now, this is what it will be if the enemy comes and takes me. Like, it's implied that part of the brutal nature of war is that when the men claim the villages, they will sexually assault or, like, rape and pillage.
Yeah, and we see that in the towns that they claim, where the women end up wearing, like, sashes that are the color, they're the shade of blue that is the Tyran color.
Yes.
Like, it's like marking them very literally.
Yes, there's some really dark stuff in this book.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I thought of this and wanted to bring it up is because we were talking about, like, fantasy written by men, and I feel like one of the biggest differences that I usually see between fantasy written by men and fantasy written by women is sexualized violence and gendered violence in those books. Like, with men, sometimes it's fetishized when men are writing it, or it's, like, made into a romantic thing, which is always gross. And I feel like a lot more often when I see women writing those same situations, it's a lot more nuanced and carefully done, especially because it is usually done from a woman's point of view, and, all that stuff.
Yeah, and in terms of the audience for this book, this is a young adult book. Yes. The people reading this book are young adults who are being
so, like, teenagers, younger teenagers.
And I think that I know there are a lot of dark things in here, but I think that the nuance that they are given is, like, I think that teenagers and young teenagers can handle it. I
agree. I mean, like, I read these books in middle school, and I feel like I was able to handle it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I didn't completely comprehend everything that was happening, and I definitely, going back and rereading it, like, I'm seeing more of, like, the brutality of the war, but I feel like the way that it's handled in the novel is well done enough where, like, it showcases the brutality of war without, I don't know, like romanticizing war
Yeah.
or violence or any of that stuff that you often end up seeing.
Yeah, I think it has the way that it depicts Enna's internal struggle with the fire, and then like the like not wanting to burn a person regardless of who that person is. I think that that is a really good nuanced situation to get teenagers
Agreed.
exposed to. And I also think that it is like a good intro to a very complex character arc that
Yeah.
might not follow the traditional, like, you start off weak and then you grow to strong,
Yeah.
superpowered
That's a
person.
really good point because Enna doesn't start off weak. She starts off conflicted
Yeah.
and like she grows through that conflict.
Yeah, she grows through that conflict, but it's like it's like very realistic to
Yeah.
how arcs actually work in real life.
Yeah, it's very much like she has highs, she has lows, she goes up, down, she takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah.
Like it's all that very realistic stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good, especially like it can stand on its own, but I think that the series as a whole, reading the first book and reading this book, it's really good
Hmm.
reading them together because they
Yes.
add nuance to each other.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think, yeah, would totally recommend this despite the darker themes.
I also think that you almost need to read the first and second book of these series like close to each other. Like the other 2 books, whatever, fine, read them later.
We'll
But
talk about them.
yeah, we will. But the Goose Girl and Enna Burning, like Enna and Izzy are like the main characters in both of those books. And they just like they swap roles. Like how we talked about earlier where in the first book Enna takes on the caring friendship role and in the second book it's Izzy's turn. Like these books together really show you this complete character arc that both of them have and how they grow as people so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is another good depiction of friendship and relationships that
Mhm.
also have their own highs and lows.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of message about forgiveness in
Yeah.
here.
Oh, and like how to
Yeah.
make amends.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive messaging in this book. I think that the general problematic stuff is all in the world building.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. And it's also like uh it's not like uh it doesn't go into detail with those things. So I almost like I don't want to say I don't mind it as much, but it's not as obvious if you're not looking for it,
Yeah,
if that
well,
makes sense.
I think the main thing to keep in mind is that this is not a diverse world.
Yeah.
The diversity is not handled in a realistic way for how the world is even set up by the
Mhm.
author,
You're
or
right.
yeah, or
You're
like
definitely right.
how just like immigration works and how climate works,
Yeah.
like, and how, yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but that's going to be a problem in so many books.
Yeah.
This
Cuz I
is
mean like Shannon Hale is a white woman from America writing
from
this.
from Utah too.
From Utah. She's a freaking Mormon. We talked about this last time.
Yes.
Like obviously it makes sense that she isn't going to have the most perfect writing of a diverse of
Yeah,
diverse cultures. Like
doesn't excuse it again,
yes, you're totally right, but it
but
explains it.
yes.
uh
Okay.
yeah, is there
With
anything we
that,
want to say with like inner editor or anything with reviving the author?
oh yeah,
You
so
really said a
this,
lot of it,
yeah,
but
follows a
yeah.
different structure than the fairy tale structure of the Goose Girl. I liked how it
Yes.
didn't use the fairy tale structure and kind of used its own story and didn't like look for another fairy tale to build
Mm.
off of, and instead it relied on its own world building. I liked that. I also liked that it wasn't like a story mountain. There were a lot of different ups and downs. I think that it was in general, it was a pretty well structured book in
Mhm.
terms of the arcs hitting at the right time, with
Mhm.
the plot arcs and the character arcs. The writing was pretty good. I think
Mhm.
something that I will say having is that the end of the book, like, it was a quieter end,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is fine,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I might have, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like the particular way the book ended. I might have added more to the ending or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, I said this before. I wanted more um of the people with the fire and the rain. Like I wanted more of that, and I wish that that part had been a little bit more expanded. Um, and I feel like we kind of rushed through the traveling back because they were trying to get Izzy back in time for her to give birth in the capital. They didn't really make it, but they still got word to Garrick, which is good.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
I liked the pacing. I think
yeah,
like
we'll
I
see
think
more
there
about
are
that
always
after
gonna
chapter
be
4.
yeah. I feel like there's always gonna be like little things where I feel like the pacing could have been better, but I think overall the pacing improved from the Goose Girl. Like I think it was better paced, and I think the
Yeah.
times when Shannon Hale chose to condense the story were well placed.
She is really good at transitioning between like scenes that are really dramatized and then stuff when she just like narrates what happens. Like she's really
Yes.
good at that balance and that transition, and she knows not to like drag on a dramatized scene too
Mhm.
long just because she's trying to find the right transition out of it. Like she doesn't put any unnecessary dialogue in the book. And I think I said
Yeah.
this in the Goose Girl, but we don't see this so often in books today with a lot of streaming services available. Books today are way more dialogue heavy than books, especially in the young adult world, than books written in whatever 2006, 2009, whatever, whenever this book was published.
Yeah. I think it was 2008 maybe. I want
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it has a really good balance between like dialogue and description, and yeah, I think we've said everything about the writing. It's
Yeah.
good. It's very character focused, but it also has a good balance of plot.
Yeah. And in terms of authorial and revive the author, I don't really have much to say because we kind of said a lot about her and the Goose Girl, and we've also
And
been
we've
bad
talked
at
about her.
killing her.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Shall we move on to fan fiction takes?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that I did after I finished reading Enna Burning is I went onto the website Archive of Our Own, which is like the big fan fiction website, and I looked up the Books of Bayern tag and looked at how many fan fictions have been written about it. There are not that many. It is like there is not really a fandom around these books in the same way that there is around like Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, which makes sense. I get it. These
But I
are
also,
older books, but I wish there was that community around it.
yeah, I mean, but this is also another thing where I think that a lot of things in the way this series was delivered made everything so satisfying that there wasn't as much of a place where people could rethink a lot of things. I think the most
Yes.
thing I'm surprised to see is like they don't like I would expect to see a lot of ships of Enna and Izzy.
That is like the biggest ship that I saw of the fan fictions.
Yeah,
That was
personally
pretty
I don't
popular.
agree with it.
See,
just because
the only reason I don't agree with it is because I love them as friends and I love their other relationships. Like, I love Garrick and Izzy, and I love Enna and Finn. I like those relationships too much to, like, ship Izzy
yeah.
and Enna.
Yeah, and I really like LGBTQ plus representation is needed in this book
Mhm.
series. It is needed. However, the heteronormative relationships that happen in this book are very good.
And they're
So I
very
would don't
healthy.
very healthy. I'm not
They're
about to like
healthy.
break them up.
And I think especially this book, I talked earlier about how Seleth is a really good example of, like, an abuser, um, and, like, how an abuser, like, abuses someone. And I think, like, the healthiness of these relationships should not be understated. In terms of, like, YA fiction, especially fantasy, we don't see stuff like
Yikes.
this often enough. Like, this is an
Mhm.
outlier,
Yeah.
and it's good for that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I will say the one fan fiction that I saw that I thought was, like, a good niche that I would like to be filled more is, there was a fan fiction from the perspective of Izzy's little brother, like, right after she gets sent away, and it's like
Oh,
about his inner emotions as he's like, oh God, now I have to be king. And I don't know, it
interesting.
was like an interesting little character study. I'll send it to you. We will
Nice.
not link it in the description probably.
Yeah.
But
Though I did do a bonus
yeah.
episode. I don't know if I'll actually release it. I did do a bonus episode where I was reading City of Ember fan fiction and
Wait, that's so
reacted.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I should do that. Okay, maybe I'll make some bonus episodes with that.
yeah, I've been recording a lot of bonus episodes that I haven't released. Um,
Dang, okay.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been very
Good.
fun. Um, yeah. What we're talking fan fiction takes. I think my fan
Yeah.
fiction take is that Izzy asks people in Yasid to help her set up a thing in Bayern to
Hmm.
help rehabilitate people who fall into fire or wind or whatever. And like
Yeah.
so she can develop she can use her own knowledge of animal speaking and people speaking and nature speaking to help them, but she's also collaborating with people in Yasid who have been doing this rehabilitation for a while.
I think Izzy definitely becomes a scholar in terms of, like, all of this stuff. I think she definitely goes on to write at least a couple of volumes about this topic.
She better.
Um, she
She
should.
better.
She has the knowledge,
She's
and
so
she
smart.
knows so many people, and she could collaborate with so many people and be so good.
Yeah.
And also, I
She
feel like
is
this knowledge just needs to be written down.
Izzy is the only valid royal worth dying for.
You're right. You're so right. Yeah. Though, Creel marries into the royal family, so I would die for Creel.
I'd die for Izzy more.
Fair enough. Um, that's valid. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think my only fanfiction takes are, like, I want the world to be more connected. I think it would be interesting to explore how these different powers, like, help different countries be more connected. Like, you could send messages over the wind,
Oh, here's a
potentially. Yeah.
here's a fan fiction take. In part of her healing process, like Finn teaches Emna how to use a sword and javelin
Oh,
and all those things so she can find another way to defend herself besides fire,
I
which is
love
part of her
that.
rehabilitation.
Wait, that's so good. Because, like, I feel like a lot of times her first thought is, like, I have to protect myself, I have to use the fire. But if she has another way of protecting herself, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though
I
she
think,
has wind now, I think that having something besides the powers would be good.
agreed. Agreed, definitely. Um, I read an interesting analysis of like fan fiction communities recently where fan fiction usually fills in gaps in the story where like
Mhm.
people like where there's like something missing. Um, so like a lot of times uh novels that are more adventure heavy, you'll see fan fiction take a more like characters just interacting route. Or if the story is characters just interacting, fan fiction will often take like let's send those people on adventures. Um, and I feel like this book has such a good balance of everything that it doesn't need that, and that's why most of my fan fiction takes are like about the world building,
Mhm.
and because that's like where the story is weakest.
Yes. Agreed.
And fan fiction exists to like fill in those gaps a lot of times. So I don't know. I just find I like analyzing fan communities. I think it's so interesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's just what I want to say. Any other fan fiction takes, or shall we move on to ratings and conclusions?
Mm, we have any? Um, my fan fiction take about the son that Izzy births is that he will grow up to
Tuscan.
be like Tuscan. He will grow up to be such a well-adjusted kid because he has like the best parents, but he's also going to be like complaining because his parents are always like trying to teach him all these preachy lessons, and they'll be like, "Mom, I don't
I
care about this. Can I just go back to playing toy soldiers?"
I feel like also his parents are kind of like the perfect royals, and like they're the perfect leaders. So there's gonna be some pressure there.
Yeah, no, I think that they're also going to like force Tuscan to work in the stables or something to work with the animals, and Tuscan's gonna be really resentful of it until he realizes when he's actually king, like, oh yeah, this was really good for me.
And then he's gonna force his kids to do the same, and it becomes a
Yes,
royal tradition.
yes.
Love
It's
it.
I think that Tuscan's gonna be a great king because he has some great parents.
Yeah. Okay,
If he
ratings and
makes it that
conclusions.
far, he could die, who knows?
Oh my god. I finished editing the Name of This Book a Secret episode today and like put it up to be released and everything. Do you know how morbid you get in that episode? You
No,
get so morbid.
I don't remember.
Oh my god. It reminded me of how morbid you are sometimes, and yeah. Good
Yeah,
times.
well, I don't know. Who knows?
Okay, ratings and conclusions. Who would you recommend it to?
Everyone.
Agreed. I would
No,
recommend it to
everyone.
everyone, especially people who read and liked the Goose Girl. I think if you liked Goose Girl and you're like a little bit older than when you first read Goose Girl, this is like perfect.
Yeah, everyone. Um, yeah, even
Uh,
people who have generational trauma. No,
what?
no, I
Did you
know.
just say?
I'm thinking about the fact that I'm like related to Holocaust survivors, and that there's a lot of mass
Ah,
murder in this book. I'm thinking about like that through the
mm,
context of um of that, and knowing that a lot of people died.
yeah. It
Mm.
is an interesting exploration of war times and
Yeah,
like that generational trauma.
yeah,
I feel like,
not a yeah.
mhm.
So that was the Holocaust was um anti-Semitically motivated. So like that's like
It's different.
it's different, but
But
still,
mass murder. Connecting factor. I
yeah.
also feel like I'm just thinking about more about generational trauma these days. Yeah, because the world's currently going through some generational trauma. This is going to impact, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, because I don't know, you're listening to this in the year 2030 for some reason. Why are you doing that?
Uh-huh.
Thank you, but why?
COVID-19.
Um, yes, we're in the middle of COVID-19, Sophie and I are at home, both of our respective homes instead of at school where
Yeah.
we would typically be this time of year.
Sharing the same room.
Yeah, and instead we have to talk over Zoom. Instead of being roommates.
I know. It's so sad.
It's very sad. So anyways, generational trauma is happening right now to the entire world. This is going to be something that I think is going to have similar repercussions as the Great Depression.
Yeah, someone's like, I don't want to go out and buy toilet paper, and then someone else is going to be like, back in my day, we had a toilet paper shortage, so you need to learn how to respect your toilet paper.
I'm laughing, but I know this is going to happen.
We're going to be horrible back in my day.
Oh my god, yeah. I hope we aren't that bad, but we probably will be.
Oh, definitely.
Can we move on?
Yes.
We're getting too sappy and sad. My nostalgia rating is a 3 out of 5, just because I didn't remember a lot of this book, but it was really fun to read. So my current rating is a 5 out of 5, because I love this book.
Nice.
What about you?
My nostalgia rating is probably a 4 out of 5, because like it does bring me back to that time in Hungary, but also something I will say is that this is a book that holds up pretty well in terms of rereading enjoyment. So I have reread it a few times since then. So it's not like something that I associate with a particular time in my life just because I have reread it a bunch of times. And then my current rating, I'm going to go high. I'm just going to call it 5 out of 5. Why not?
Wow, that's so nice coming from you.
Yeah.
So generous.
I just love the series. I gotta give it some credit.
That's true. So if you were one of these characters, who would you be? I think last time I said that I would be a mix between Ani and Enna, so Issa or Izzy. Okay. Before we end, I kept saying in my head every time it said Izzy on the page, I kept saying Issa in my head.
Shout out to her friend Issa.
Yeah, because it was spelled so similarly. They spell Issa, or they spell Izzy I-S-A. Or no, yeah. My brain.
It's I-S-I. I-S-I is Izzy.
Yeah, and
okay,
then,
which character are you though?
I think I'm still a mixture of both of them.
Okay, I don't remember what I said.
I can be.
Can
Finn. I'd like to be Finn. He's good.
Yeah, maybe I'll say Razzo. Why not?
You'll probably change your answer next time with the next book, but
yeah, I'll just say Razzo just because friend, supportive, and then
he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I think that the comic relief, by humor, I don't know. I'm just going to go Razzo. There are definitely elements of me that are Izzy. But yeah, I'll just go with that.
Okay, so that's all for this week. Next time we'll be reading River Secrets, which is also by Shannon Hale. It's the 3rd book in the series.
Check us out on Twitter and Instagram at WTKA_podcast and at our website, link in the description.
Thanks for listening.
Stay cool.
And have a great day.
Don't let it flame out on you.
Oh my